From CBS News back in October, 2 Illinois National Guard members speak out, quote, "I won't turn against my neighbors." Quote, "It's disheartening to be forced to go against your community members and your neighbors. It feels illegal. This is not what we signed up to do. I signed up to defend the American people and protect the Constitution," Blaha said. "When we have somebody in power who's actively dismantling our rights, free speech, due process, freedom of the press, it's really hard to be a soldier right now. Understand, everyone, Democrats are fomenting a faction in our military to defy Donald Trump and, quote, pick an effing side." So when you already have National Guard going to the press and saying it, quote, "it feels illegal," this is what Democrats are saying. They're trying to get this message to more and more members of the military to create a faction that will be loyal to them and disloyal to the president. Welcome to the civil strife period. This is how you get factions. This is how you end up with 2 different militaries shooting at each other.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about like the National Guard being activated or having the president make a decree or send the National Guard somewhere, it's going to be tough to get him to say, "Hey, I'm going to use force against my neighbors," which is why you had Texas going to Chicago to support the law enforcement there. If you have the president do that kind of stuff, then you're more likely to have the National Guard, following their orders as opposed to following the governor's orders.
Keep in mind that they're claiming, this is why this is a headline, right? But the biggest thing you should think about is two National Guard members speak out. And at the very end, it says, he's dismantling free speech, democracy. It's the end of the world. Kind of saying the same thing you always hear anybody that's kind of wilding out what they're going to say. But
it is Beam Dream. Head over to shopbeam.com, my friends, /Tim Pool, and pick up your Beam Dream, your nighttime sleep blend. Helps you sleep better. I drink this stuff every night. I swear by it. It is delicious. It's got melatonin, magnesium, L-theanine. It is fantastic. And right now, you will get their early Black Friday sale, 50% off. I really do think it's fantastic. And this is legit. I do drink it every single night. My sleep improved. I didn't even know it could improve. And now for the past several months, I've been having consistently good sleep. And you guys know that I recently had a baby. So that's pretty impressive. Good stuff, Beam Dream.
What is failed to be said is there's 13,000 National Guard members in Illinois, not 2. It shouldn't even be an article, right? Shouldn't even be a headline.
I disagree.
You don't think so?
I think those 2 are the summation of the people who surround them. The saying goes that you are the summation of the 5 people who surround you. These people are certainly part of other groups that they surround and are surrounded by. I would argue that there's probably many Democrat-leaning members of the National Guard. The thing that people should understand is we're not talking about Army or Marines or anything like that. We're talking about National Guard. They live in these neighborhoods. Trump's had to bring people from Texas into Chicago, and these people are saying, "I won't do it." And this is exactly as I've described over and over again. When people keep saying like, "Oh, this will never happen, it won't happen." When it comes to receiving orders from the president, historically, famously, the Confederate general said, "My nation or my home, I choose my home." And when you get this Blaha guy, isn't he a politician?
I have no idea. I've never heard his name before.
You've got Staff Sergeant Demi Palachek. She's a state legislative candidate from Illinois' 13th district, and you have Captain Dylan Blaha running for Congress in the same district. This is so certainly that sentiment in Illinois' 13th is aligned with their views, and there are going to be many people in National Guard who live in Chicago who are going to be liberals. Yeah, and they do weekend training or whatever. They rarely get deployed like this. If Donald Trump, you know what this leads us to. I was saying this a few weeks ago, that historically, the precedent right now, it would not be unprecedented if Donald Trump suspended habeas corpus in key areas where they were engaging in the protective principle and the deployment of military and National Guard. Abraham Lincoln suspended habeas corpus for the purpose of transporting military from Philly down to D.C. and other areas. They didn't want any sabotage on supply lines. If you've got 2 Illinois National Guards saying they're going to defy orders, and you've got Democrats telling them they should defy orders, it would not be unprecedented. I'm not saying it would be good. But if Trump came out and said, we're going to suspend habeas corpus in the transport lines for National Guard, and we will not tolerate insubordination in any capacity, sedition, treason, or otherwise, we have right now this as a threat with Trump saying it's seditious behavior. I would not be surprised if Trump or if Stephen Miller came on TV and said, we talked about suspending habeas corpus, we're doing it now. And it's because Democrats are trying to create factions in the military to defy the chain of command.
And that kind of like feeds into what you've been talking about recently of there are certain states who will fight each other like blue, red. They're setting their bases up and borderlines. Like
hyperpolarizing.
Yeah.
The fact that in Oregon, they're arresting conservatives, or that they're filing injunctions or seeking injunctions to block Trump deploying National Guard and saying he has no authority to do so when he certainly does. And now we're learning that they've continually suppressed what's called the protective principle and called it illegal, which has been precedent for decades. Trump can deploy the military, but not for domestic law enforcement. So he can send troops to a federal building to stand around. The idea is if they are attacked, they can protect the building. But they're not enforcing domestic law. They're not arresting people or giving out tickets or anything like that. The scariest thing about this is the principal issue that is the principal circumstance was marijuana farms with child slaves. Yeah. And the National Guard went in and helped break these things up as DHS and federal agents made arrests and rescued these kids. Democrats were apoplectic that their child slave drug farms were shut down.
Crazy.
That's what I kid you not. The average person not paying attention, we want them to, but this is why elections matter, and it's why messaging, it needs to be economics. I would much rather Trump wins, the Republicans win the midterms, and then Democrats just eventually shut up and go away and stop doing this evil garbage. But the reason why it's so important is because we discovered there were pot farms in California with child slaves, and Democrats defended the practice and tried to stop Donald Trump from shutting these things down. That's how terrifying it is where we are. So I imagine in 50 to 100 years, depending on what happens with the second Civil War, if there is one, they'll write about, well, the child slave farms growing drugs in California were a principal issue of contention among Republicans, as well as abortion up to 9 months, among other issues.
That all depends on who wins.
Indeed.
Yeah. They get to write the history books. If I had $100, I would put it on the Nothing Ever Happens bros. They tend to be right most of the time. I look at stories like this, and honestly, I'm not that offended or bothered, or certainly not surprised by the Democrats. The liberals are going to lib. But honestly, the Trump administration has been, from my perspective, quite disappointing. I'm tired of the DHS, memeing Lord of the Rings. Pippin, there won't be a Shire. Like, I want to see arrests.
Pippin, there won't be a Shire.
I mean, I remember being excited, but at a certain point, like, it's like the joke's on me, and you start to be embarrassed, and rightfully so. Like, I remember being excited and being like, oh,
arrests of who?
Snap! You've got Trump tweeting out Napoleon quotes. He who saves his country violates no law.
But who do you want arrested?
Who do I want arrested?
Yeah.
Well, first, we need ICE to actually deport people. And anyone who gets in the way should be arrested.
So the estimate right now in 10 months is, I think, 600,000 deportations. How
many?
600,000. And 1.4 million I think, is it 1.
Right. It's like 3 million
total.
total.
3 million total.
That's a joke.
Out of the 11 to 20, if we keep up this pace, we won't have deported everyone that came in illegally under Joe Biden. But what is the saying? Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good?
Of course. You got to do something. But how many do you think came in under Biden? I'm under the impression that you had
11.
What was it?
11 to 20 is the estimate.
Yeah, but in terms of gotaways, that's for
no, that includes the
and
gotaways.
Illegal.
Yeah.
But then
the gotaways are included in that.
So 20 million total?
That's the high end, and the low end is 11.
Okay. 20 to 11.
Yeah. So my point is this: I don't disagree with you. I'm not trying to.
It seems like you've got about 50 million people. There was some.
I don't know about
50.
remember
who somebody said something recently. There was some stats that came out where it was like 50 million immigrants. Between everything, between H-1B visas, between work visas, between all this kind of stuff. So and I understand that's different.
You're not going to get a deportation of every foreign national on a visa. It's never going to happen. And there may be some denaturalization, which needs to happen because of the national security threats. But my view is, when you say nothing ever happens, there's an important thing to understand, right? With Raymond, you're mentioning that normies aren't paying attention, they don't care, and things like that. These things are both true, but in certain contexts. Normies, when we say, oh, they don't care about this, doesn't matter, we're talking about policy debates, Epstein files. We want the Epstein files released. It's not going to motivate voters. The cost of milk will.
Yes.
In terms of conflict and murder, all that matters is those who have their finger on the trigger are at this point. As for the nothing ever happens, I agree in terms of, are we actually going to see Comey get arrested, or the Clintons? You know, the threat the other day was Comer saying the Clintons face prison. Yeah, right. I agree with nothing ever happens. Yeah. That being said, in this regard, I can only say it's been happening nonstop. And every major conflict is frogs boiling in a pot.
Yes.
If you went 10 years into the past, you know, Donald Trump just came down the escalator. We're entering the primary season. And you said to a room full of people, right, 10 years from now, the Democrats will call in the military to defy President Trump in his second term, non-consecutive, by the way, defy orders from the president. And then he said, sedition, punishable by death. They'd say, please put this madman in the loony bin.
Right.
So many things have happened. In terms of escalation.
A lot of talking has happened.
Charlie Kirk's dead.
Yeah. Yes.
It's not just talking. There have been murders, assassinations.
But that's my point.
There's been something like 50 to 70 terror attacks targeting people on the right.
But that's my point. So talking, my concern is with the right. Things happen. You're absolutely right. I'm concerned that things don't happen from the right. Things happen to the right from the left.
Okay.
So that's what I'm trying to say. So in terms of things happening, I'm with you 100%. Will the left actually commit political assassinations? Will the left kill people? Will they lie? Will they defraud? Yes, they take action. Right?
Yep.
They take action. Trump.
That's why the right is called reactionary.
Yeah, not
when
so
the
much.
revolutionary left in France said, we're changing everything, the right that wanted to maintain the monarchy said, no, hold on there, gosh darn a minute. They reacted only.
Yeah, correct. Franco, same kind of thing.
Yep.
Hitler, same kind of thing.
But maybe you get a Franco in this regard. Maybe Trump is a Franco or Caesar.
I think he's a precursor. I thought that. I
Aaron.
hoped that. No, seriously. So I was drinking the Kool-Aid. I hate to admit it, but I feel like I got to be honest. Like I was like, Trump's going to come in, American Caesar. He's going to clean up, America. We're so back. I was posting like everybody else. The DHS, are you kidding me? Like, you've got the DHS posting this or whatever, and Bible verses, from ICE, on Twitter, and really excited about it. But here we are. We're coming up on a year into a second term. It feels like we're going to get slaughtered in the midterms. We're going to have President Trump with his hands tied behind his back, a lame duck presidency. And then honestly, right now, the conditions feel like they're getting set to where we might get slaughtered again in 2028. So anyways, all that being said, I'm with you 100%. It feels like we had our wires crossed for a second. There is action. There are crazy historical things happening. It's not small. It needs to be taken seriously. But in terms of the action, the crazy stuff happening, it's from the left. The right is still just talking.
Right. If we track alongside the Spanish Civil War, then the prediction would be that Democrats win 26 and 28. And by 2030, the right engages in hardcore military action.
That's what I think. I think we haven't felt enough. So back to, you said the frogs boiling, in a pot of water. Right. We haven't felt enough pain.
The point of the Spanish Civil War was that the right had power, said we got to stop the communists. Everybody agreed, but then things didn't go that well. So the communists won power back, and then Franco, he's just like, okay, I guess, let's see how things go. And then started seeing what was going on. They were basically becoming a vassal of the Soviet Union. And he says, okay, we better go take this whole thing over. And then you got the right-wing military coup in Spain, which lasted until he died, and then became a republic.
Right, and that's kind of what we felt in 2020. It's like I think people really were sick. You're normies, right? The people just want to grill in the backyard. They actually tuned into politics, at least a little bit. Yeah, and so they tuned in, and they're like, this is ridiculous. We got Drag Queen Story Hour. We've got pornography in elementary school libraries. We've got all these kind of things. And they're like, that's enough, and they went in there for the second time, arguably, I would say the third time, and gave the FU Donald Trump, vote in the ballot box. But here's the deal. In terms of keeping power, it's exactly what you just said, Tim. In terms of keeping power, you have a very small window of time when the right comes in to prove that it's an improvement, that it's actually better. And that has not been proven, right? And when people want proof, one of the big things is going to be their pocketbook. It's going to be economics. Like, can I afford to live? You're looking at it, it's like, all right, Trump's president. We're supposed to have this golden age of America. Houses are even more unaffordable. Groceries doesn't feel like it's gotten better. And And so you have a short window. As soon as that's gone, then people, it's not like people turn all the way on a dime and they're like, yeah, bring back the drag queen story hours. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is that people will just tune out. I think 2028, honestly, I think the numbers of just overall voting that we had in 2020, I think, or 2024 in terms of presidential election voting numbers, I think you're going to see smaller numbers. I agree. Just won't care.
Especially right now, where you've got a couple major scandals. You've got that Stacey Plaskett is a known puppet of Epstein. Yes. Business Insider wrote about this in 2023. We'll jump to that story in a bit. And now we learned that she was taking direction from Epstein in the hearing with Michael Cohen to build a false criminal case against Donald Trump. This is crazy. Epstein colluding with Democrats to take down Donald Trump. It's confirmed, and we've had the information going back from 23. Now we have her texting with Epstein.
And after all of Trump's friendship with Epstein, he's still turned.
Sure. The point
How could Epstein do that? It's like he's a bad guy or something.
People are tuning out right now from politics. They largely don't care anymore. If you without naming anybody in particular, but you take a look at some of these conservative commentators on YouTube who have big multi-million followings, hey, their views are at like 20 to 30% of where they were 4 or 5 months ago.
Ouch.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I don't want to drag anybody. Yeah. And then there are some whose views are way up.
And that's interesting.
That is pretty interesting. But I think regular people are largely tuned out. The top trending stories have all basically become sports, which is kind of a relief. Kind of, That being said, the politics still dictates life. And I was having a conversation with some professional athletes recently who are like, man, I don't follow news. I don't know or care. And I said, have you asked why rent is high or you can't afford a house or why your money's not going far? And they're like, well, I mean, that is an issue. And I'm like, see, that's what happens when you don't pay attention to politics. Right. You don't know why you can't afford to buy anything anymore. And then you get mad. And then because you're mad, you go to politics for an answer. And the Democrat comes and says, I will steal money from someone to give to you. Right. And they vote Democrat.
Oh, shoot.
Right.
Yep.
Honestly, I was just going to say, steal money from somebody. So I'm a Christian pastor. So my whole life, it's always been like socialism is theft, right? You can't take money from some guy and give it to somebody else. That's a violation of the 8th commandment. Thou shalt not steal. But I'll be honest, I don't really see a way out. Like, I feel like we're cooked. Like, when I think of the economy, when I think of the amount of debt, when I think of the amount of usury, right now, like, I think it's all the way. Some reports are saying back to all-time highs of like 2009. Some are saying 2003 in delinquencies. Cars getting repoed.
Oh, the LSATs,
highest. Dude. So when you're looking at all of this, you're looking at house prices, all these different things. I look at that, and then you look at like someone like Elon Musk, or Jeff Bezos, and I'm not just saying because they're rich, but you look at the whole AI narrative and all these kinds of things. It does seem, and I don't like this, I'm not saying, so this is not a prescription, it's a prediction. There's a difference between the two. But when I look at it, I'm like, I think that massive wealth is actually possible. And I think it could be actually coming quickly. The problem is, the average person is not going to actually be able to produce that kind of wealth. The only thing, it's like, wait a second, is that National Socialism? But like, the only thing that I can even think of for the average American to be able to, and you saw Elon Musk actually recently said this. He said, high universal income.
Yeah.
High universal income. I don't like that. I don't want universal income. I would like for people to be attached to the land, actually produce things, work with their hands. Everybody be able to have a trade, be able to contribute. Those kinds of things. I don't want blue collar America to get addicted to meth because they just have free checks in the mail and they're not productive citizens. So all of it bothers me immensely. But when I look and I see like where we're heading because of technological innovation and then our politics and our culture and all these kinds of things, it's like they keep serving up AI slop. And, like Billy Madison is like, I made it extra sloppy for you. I know how you kids, you Americans love your sloppy joes. And we're like, please, sir, may I have another? I don't see the toothpaste going back in the tube.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.